This is a Porsche 911. Its engine is in the back and it looks remarkably similar to the car launched over 50 years ago bearing the same name. But this isn't any old 911, it's a Targa, and it's got a cool roof with a name that has history. Because it does this. Think of this as a folding hardtop that isn't A, overpriced like a Merc SL, or B, CAC, like those old Peugeot 206cc things you see mums driving round in. Except it's not really a hardtop, it's sort of a soft top light, and when you want the sun in your ear hair, the car will eat it until you want more roof in your life again. Porsche's Targa range is four-wheel drive only, no rear drive shenanigans here. But this one is a GTS, and the GTS cars are pretty cool. They get more power. This has 424 brake horsepower and 325 pound-foot coming out of its 3.8 litre engine. They also get lots of extra toys, for example, Porsche Active Stability Management, a Sport Chrono package and active engine mounts to keep the engine in check under load. There's much more than that as well. Maths fans would be good to note that speccing a regular Targa 4S to this level would cost £112,000. The Targa GTS costs a little over £104,000. Still a lot, but not as much of a lot as you would be paying otherwise. With a PDK Auto, it'll get you from 0 to 62 in 4.3 seconds and up to 187 miles an hour, which isn't exactly slow. The GTS part of this car's name comes from the 904 Carrera GTS racing car, the legend that it is. It's also famed Porsche designer Butzi Porsche's favourite ever design. That's pretty cool. But what about the Targa part, and how come it's not a proper convertible? Well, that's an interesting story. As with many Porsche names, Targa is borrowed from the world of motorsport. The Targa Florio was a super risky road race that ran from 1906 until 1977. With brakes for wars, obviously. Now, much like Le Mans, Porsche holds the record for having the most wins of any manufacturer for the Targa Florio. And it wasn't an easy race. The course was a lap of Sicily. Well, at one point it was. There were a number of course variants ranging from the 600-mile loop of Sicily to more laps of shorter loops to, well, you get my drift. Lots of variation. The roads were tough and technical. The drivers must have been mad. The Florio was killed off because it was simply too unsafe. Cars were getting faster, and in its last year enough people were killed to put an instant stop to it. So that's why the Targa is called the Targa. It has proper motorsport heritage. But how come it's not a proper convertible? Why is it a removable or foldable roof panel? Well, that's down to our friends in America. You see, in the 60s and 70s, manufacturers were making cars with these removable panels on them because they thought the US government was going to ban proper convertibles, and rather than develop a product only to have it removed from market, they got smart. They built cars with proper roll hoops and the safety features you'd get from a hardtop car, but also gave drivers an option to tan their bald spots. The first car to use the Targa name appeared in 1966. It was a 911, funnily enough, and in Italian it means shield or plate. But it wasn't the first car to use that roof mechanism. That honour falls to the Triumph TR4. On the Triumph it wasn't given a silly Italian name, no, it was called the Surrey Top. So now you know why the Targa is called the Targa and why it has an interesting roof mechanism. So what's it like to drive? Well, as you'd expect, it's a Porsche 911, so it's lovely, it's wonderful. There is one big difference from the rear-wheel drive car I drove earlier in the year, and that is the drivetrain. This is all-wheel drive. And while it gives you a lot of extra grip, you do feel a lot safer going around corners when it's wet, like it is today. It started off dry, now it's wet, hence there's some shots of this with the roof up, and a lot with the roof down, and vice versa, because yay, British summertime. Anyway, it gives you a lot more confidence, but at the same time you do lose a little bit of steering feel from it because, well, the front wheels have a job to do as well. There's a little metery thing in the instrument binnacle that shows you exactly what they're doing and when they're doing it. But I think that's a necessary trade-off. If you're going to have four-wheel drive, you can't have ultra mega hyper pure steering. And it's still quite good steering. In fact, I'll say it's more than quite good. It's really good steering. It feels really lovely. They fixed the gearbox for this car and it feels fantastic. It's a nice shortish throw. The clutch is a bit on the springy side, but nothing you wouldn't be able to get used to. And it feels great to finally be able to change your own gears in a 911 and not feel a bit cheated. My only bugbear with it is changing into 7th, because the idea is you're on the motorway, you're cruising, you lump it into 7th. But so many times this morning on the drive down here, I kept putting it into 5th because it's just not quite as intuitive. It might just be because I'm not used to having a 7th ratio, but still, it's a bit naff. When you put the roof down though, that's when you get a little bit extra out of the Targa experience. Because once the roof has been eaten by the car, you get to hear the noise, you get to feel the sun on your head, you get to feel a little bit of wind rush, but it's not uncomfortable, it's not too windy, you don't get blustered. But you still get that open top experience. And this one looks like this. It's got the roll hoop like you got on the original Targa. It looks really proper. It sets it off. It makes it stand out. I do like Porsche design a lot. Some people say it's boring, some say it hasn't changed in over 50 years. But every time they bring out a new car, there's something awesome to look at. There's little details everywhere that just set it off. And whoever had the responsibility of designing the new Targa, whoever that person is, good on you. Because I love that rollover hoop, it just makes the car bang on. This being a GTS, it has lots and lots and lots and lots of power. 424 brake, as I mentioned earlier, and by God, you can feel it. You feel it better at the top end of the rev range. It just surges you forward and you get that beautiful Porsche howl. Even if you leave it out of the many sport modes, it's a brilliant 911, obviously, because it's a 911. 911s, they give you this certain feeling that only a 911 can, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it before I'd driven a few. But they're just right. You feel the weight at the back, and when you go around a corner, because you've got your four-wheel drive, you put the power down a little bit earlier and it squats a bit at the back, because that's what 911s do, and it throws you forward, and you have that extra confidence in the car that it lets you play with it, it lets you exploit it, and it feels lovely. These things are just fantastic motors. I do wonder whether this range of cars, this GTS as well, like the GTS range, the cars we've driven this year, I do wonder whether these are the last non-turbo 911s. I know the GT3s and the RSs, those are going to stay naturally aspirated for as long as possible, but the next generation of 911s will have turbochargers. We know this, it's a fact. So this is a more special car than really I thought of when I got into it this morning. There's years of heritage in every 911. As a result of that, there's a 911 for everyone. Speed, hardcore hoonery, or more relaxed blatting. The Targa is the drop top for the person that doesn't really want a drop top. It can be an occasional thing, and its chrome Targa hoop, a hark back to 1966's original, is seriously cool. Personally, I would go for a GTS rear-wheel drive coupe, but I can see why you pick the Targa. Yeah, the all-wheel drive thing does take the edge off it just a little bit, but this isn't a car you buy exclusively for the drive, you get it for its looks as well. The thing that really makes this car stand out though, is its history, the race cars that suffered and won to give it that name, a name that's been going on nearly as long as the 911 itself. And with the roof down, when you put your foot on the gas, you can almost hear them echoing through the cabin.